Hi there, YouTube. The world is a wonderful place today. Just FYI, got some steaks on the grill, and while they get cooking, I'm going to talk to you. Also, proof that the world is a great place, this stuff. It is alcoholic seltzer, and it's delicious. Today's Kingdom Melody was actually pretty popular in our congregations growing up. Not really sure why, but they played it a lot. This one is actually particularly vapid, if you want to know the truth, and repetitive. It was number 55 in 1966 and number 106 in 1984, and surprisingly, there were actually no changes to the lyrics. It was deleted, however, in the 2009 songbook, so it's not in the new one either. Now, to switch things up a bit today, we're going to talk first about the scriptural reference for this song before we actually start singing. It's Ephesians 5:15, which in the King James Version says, "See then that you walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise." Now, the New World Translation says, "So keep strict watch, that how you walk is not as unwise, but as wise persons." Now, we've heard this many, many times from the platform, I know. Now, the difference in wording here, though, is what I find interesting. First, circumspect versus strict watch. I mean, the two translations are saying similar things here, but not exactly the same thing. To be circumspect or cautious is a little bit different from keeping strict watch. To me, strict watch implies something specific you're on the lookout for, or some specific set of rules that you're following, whereas caution is more universal and less rigid. The second thing I think is interesting here is the difference between fool and simply being unwise. Because I know quite a few people who make unwise decisions, but that doesn't necessarily make them fools. Because let's face it, a true fool has no caution. They don't realize there's a need for caution. But an unwise person could be perfectly capable of keeping strict watch, following orders, even if they don't always make good choices. And finally, I think it's really funny that the Jehovah's Witnesses felt the need to add persons to the end of this, just in case, I don't know, you thought the King James Version was talking about wise owls or chimpanzees or insects or something. I don't know. Anyway, verse 1. Let's watch how we walk and watch how we talk, that thus we may be alert and wise. You know, this song always did put me in the mind of some finger-wagging schoolmarm. Or at the very least, my mother telling us to watch your mouth. It's really silly. Keep in mind that you're talking about a whole room full of adults singing this at the top of their lungs. And how does being overly preoccupied with your methods of perambulation and speech equate to being alert and wise? I mean, these have nothing to do with each other. You know, the words alert and wise actually describe the opposite of most of what Jehovah's Witnesses are. I mean, I was certainly not wise as a Jehovah's Witness, and I was definitely not alert. I was effectively asleep, believing whatever I was told about literally everything in the world. And come to find out, the people that I was trusting for my information were utterly clueless and had no idea what they were talking about 99% of the time. I'm sorry, but what the hell does this even mean? The phrase buying out the opportune time was one that I remember hearing all the time as a Jehovah's Witness, but I've never heard it outside of that context. So I Googled it, and what do you know? Pages and pages and pages of Jehovah's Witness stuff. It turns out that this is their translation of the next verse of the scriptural reference, Ephesians 5:16, which in the King James Version says, "Redeeming the time because the days are evil." Now the New World Translation says, bingo, "Buying out the opportune time for yourselves because the days are wicked." Now basically what I think this phrase means is that we'd all better hurry up and get baptized and dedicate ourselves to Jehovah's Witness service before it's too late and we all get squashed like bugs at Armageddon. Because it could start at any moment, you know, like a thief in the night. And if you're even a little bit spiritually weak, which means not quite busting your ass as a Watchtower salesperson and following all of the arbitrary rules, Jehovah could kill you and your children if they're young enough. Great guy, isn't he? I would also like to point out that unless Satan is a galaxy or something, it's literally impossible for the world to lie in him. Unless we're living in a giant tumor.
Yes, watch how we walk and watch how we talk. Let us we may be alert and wise.
You better watch it.
Let's watch how we preach and watch what we teach.
If only they actually did this.
Encourage weak ones to take their stand. By our Bible study with them, give them all a helping hand.
Oh, please. Jehovah's Witnesses love to sing about helping meek ones to take their stand. But what if these people don't actually feel the need to take a stand? I mean, if they felt like they needed to take a stand, they probably would have already done it. I mean, what if they don't want to? Why should they be pressured into doing something like this? Why is taking a stand even necessary? Well, spoiler alert, guys. It's not. Nobody cares. Also, public service announcement for Jehovah's Witnesses. Studying the Bible with someone is not, in fact, giving them a helping hand. I know you think it is, but it's not. A helping hand would be food, clothing, shelter, friendship, emotional support, not brainwashing, conditioning, pressure, and coercion to follow a corporate agenda that aims to benefit the corporation and not its volunteer sales force. I'm just saying.
Watch what we preach and watch what we teach and thus help weak ones to take their stand.
No thanks.
Let's watch how we treat and watch how we treat all those we meet in our ministry.
But you'll notice here, they don't have to watch how they greet or treat anyone else. Witnesses are certainly not concerned with how they treat former believers, as we know. I can vouch for that. In fact, many of them seem to delight in going out of their way to make trouble for disfellowshipped friends and relatives. Some of them seem to enjoy doing things that are deliberately hurtful. Like, for example, my mother insisting that I call my rabid Jehovah's Witness uncle the same one who was basically defrauding me a while back to make sure he knows about her current health status. Never mind that my sister and I, who were actually her power of attorneys, had to find out from an elder in her congregation to whom she gave the healthcare power of attorney because she's convinced that we're conspiring with the doctors to give her a blood transfusion. She doesn't need a blood transfusion. I have no issues with this elder. I mean, he's a nice guy, and he's doing his best, but, man, I can tell you one thing. I'm not calling my uncle to tell him anything. He can find out on Facebook for all I care. The way my sister and I had to find out about our beloved grandfather's passing a few years ago. Yeah, that'd be great for him.
Like Christ Jesus, our fine shepherd, care for his sheep
lovingly. Right, because policing people's private lives, coercing them into shunning their loved ones, and allowing child molesters to get off without so much as a slap on the wrist is so very moral and loving.
Watch how we treat and watch how we treat and stumble not in our ministry.
Here they go again with their goofy use of the word stumble. Now, I've said it before, but it's not grammatically possible to stumble someone. You can cause them to stumble, or you can stumble, they can see you stumble, but saying you're stumbling someone else is just wrong. I mean, that's not actually how the English language works, guys. But what could they mean by stumble none in our ministry? Assuming you could stumble someone in your ministry, how would you do it? Maybe by saying something too cultish at the door? I remember once being out in service with my mom as a kid, and I said something about the society to a householder, and the lady was like, "Wait, what? What does that mean?" And my mom tried to smooth it over and change the subject, but I was like, that was weird. Well, when we got in the car, I got talking to about how I should never say things like that to a householder, that I might stumble them. Why? Because they don't understand. And the translation is, the real world translation is, too much cult at the beginning of the relationship. We have to start them small. Things like, God's name is Jehovah. We don't get to the society or the organization that speaks for Jehovah until at least midway through the Live Forever book or whatever they're doing now, right? It's ridiculous. Anyway, my steaks are done. My steaks are beautiful, and we're ready to eat them. So, enjoy your weekend, and I'll do another Kingdom song next time. Leave your requests in the comments.